Good afternoon. I'm Brooke Harris. We'll call the Budget Committee meeting to order for December 15th. Roll call, please.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Curran? Here. Mrs. Burdick?
Here.
Mr. Fanton? Mr. Ricky?
Here.
Mr. Stockin? Mr. Crandall? Here. 7 present.
Thank you, ma'am. Seeking approval of the minutes from the November 17th committee meeting. Thank you. Moved by Mr. Fanton, seconded by Mr. Ricky. Any comments, corrections, additions? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? The minutes are approved. County Treasurer Terry Ross.
Good afternoon, everyone. In your packet is your sales tax report. We received our first payment in December, December 7th. That was, gross was $1 million, over $1 million. They did defer the AIM this time for $309,564. So that includes the diversion. Gross receipts are up at this point by 16.2%. Our net receipts after all the diversions, including the distressed hospital, which totals $742,675. We are still increased our sales tax by 12.7%. So we are holding strong at that point at about a 12% increase. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Mr. Barnes?
Yeah, if there's one thing good about the COVID situation is that our sales tax has continued to increase significantly during this period. As we hopefully come out of the COVID period, do you anticipate that this will continue, or it's going to level off, or hopefully not decrease?
Well, I wish I had the crystal ball, but I do believe that the residents of Allegheny County are accustomed now to ordering online. And I believe that change in the law prior to COVID, which happened in early 2019, I believe that collecting the internet sales tax, I think it'll stay. I think people are accustomed to ordering online, and they find it convenient. And I'm guessing we'll have a slight decrease in that after COVID restrictions are lifted and there's more, open shopping, if that's what you want to refer to that as. But I do believe that I think the internet sales will still continue to benefit us here in Allegheny County.
Thank you.
Mr. Healy?
You're welcome.
Yes, Chairman. Just on another note, I would assume that car sales will go up next year also as the supply chain improves and chips are available and automobiles are available. And I think probably this year that's been pretty slow for car sales. So hopefully there'll be a big pent-up demand. It'll be met, and we'll get a little windfall from that too. Thank you.
One thing that I'd like to add to that, though, is the used car prices are up so much. I think it took up, or it kind of made the difference very.
Mr. Crandall?
Yeah, I just follow-up question for the treasurer on the e-commerce online sales stuff. In your conversation with others across the state, do you feel like we have a good report and handle on what is coming back to us for those sales? I know we have some agreements and stuff there, but what's the inside on feeling like we're getting proper reports and reimbursement for that?
Well, officially, the counties we don't have any control over the reporting. That all does run through the state, and we don't ever receive reports from vendors who are paying sales tax. We see the reports like NISAC will deliver to us, breaking it down into the larger categories. I mean, we've seen that. I've shared that with you. I can't say completely that those are being submitted as proper as they should be, but I do believe that the state does a good investigation on those people that are completing their sales tax reports. And when they find discrepancies, either they paid too much or they paid too little, those are reconciled throughout the year, and we will get those adjustments in our payments. We don't get to audit them though, Chairman, so I'm not sure really how to, depict that answer as a good one or a bad one, so,
No, thank you. There was a time when that was a big concern.
correct.
Thanks.
Mr. Barnes?
Yeah, my understanding of collection of sales taxes through the internet sales are that's based on the customer's zip code. Is that correct?
Correct. Point of delivery?
Are all of Allegheny County residents in a Allegheny County zip code?
Not necessarily. There are some on the borders, around our borders, that overlap. So they might have a Cattaraugus or a Steuben County zip code, but they're an Allegheny County residents. So it is debatable about the use of zip codes, whether that's an accurate depiction of point of delivery.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I have one, Terry.
Yes.
I've had a constituent approach me, having read something online. My mother told me never to believe everything you're reading on Facebook, but I think that was the source. Talking about this windfall in sales tax and whether or not it's appropriate now for us to reduce our local share of sales tax and return that portion back to the taxpayer. Do you think that's appropriate at this point?
I don't believe that our increase in our annual sales tax equalizes out to what we would lose if we were to drop the sales tax rate by 1%. My recollection off the top of my head is that a 0.5% decrease amounts to, I have written down about $5.4 million, $5.5 million. I don't believe we're at that point now where we would recoup all of that. We would have to eat into our other funds to be able to drop the percentage by 0.5%.
Okay, and so a follow-up there. So I'm seeing this 12% net increase after diversion, but that doesn't take into effect year-over-year inflation, is that right?
Correct.
So in other words, if we're sitting at, and I don't know what it is, but say it's 7% inflation year-over-year, then that increase in sales tax is an actual 5%. Is that right?
Yes, I would agree with that calculation.
Okay, and so, and then just to wrap it up, increases in inflation that reflect in revenue sources like sales tax will likely also manifest themselves on the expense side of our budget. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because whatever we gain on sales tax, we're paying out on probably cost of product on the other side. The one thing to remember too about sales tax, this current year's sales tax, is that there was a calculation, there's some recalculation that will probably be done with a reconciliation, and NISAC and other agencies have encouraged us to be conservative in our budget projections for sales tax, because once they do that reconciliation, we could lose funding and then they would redistribute funds. So they might take some from us or we might gain some, but in most likelihood, we would probably lose some sales tax if that reconciliation is done and we're on the losing end of that. So we are conservative in our sales tax projections. Obviously, through COVID, we had no idea what was going to happen. So we've been conservative still with our 2022 budget.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fanton?
Yeah, I would just like to suggest we keep our powder dry. If you looked at the PPI, which is the Producer's Price Index, went up almost 10% this month, and that's going to reflect into our CPI next month, which is going to be a big increase in the cost of living coming our way.
Thank you. Mr. Healy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also, I don't think we'll have a true picture of our expense side of the budget until we close our books in the spring. Is that correct?
Correct.
For anybody that may not understand that we operate on the state fiscal year, and when we reconcile our books, then we'll know exactly what the story is versus our expenditures versus our budget.
Correct. Our fiscal year will end December 31st, and then we will gather all our year-end information. Our report back to the state is due by April 30th. So by, mid-March, we'll know where we end up for December 31st, 2021. So then we'll report back and give you an update on that. But yeah, we won't know everything until we get everything in from all the departments and do our reconciliations of our year end.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Crandall?
Yeah, we've had the debate many times on the floor here before when it comes to sales tax and what that rate should be for Allegheny County. But for the new board and moving forward, and I won't be involved with those debates, every dollar that you lose or don't pick up in sales tax, with everything being equal, that falls to property tax. And I think that the board will have to take a long, hard look, or should, before they tinker with that rate. And we've seen in the past where counties have looked to increase that rate and had a hard time doing it. I would be concerned that if you drop that down, you'd have a hard time getting that back if that were to circle around again. It always sounds good and it sounds like a nice position, but I think you should take your time and work through that and understand the ramifications. Thank you.
Thank you. So also with the fund balance and property taxes, there's some online folklore lately that suggests that we could decimate our fund balance in favor of cutting property taxes by 50%. That would make for a great year, but only one great year, after which we'd be raising taxes 50%. So that's the epitome of short-sightedness, in my opinion. Any other comments? Okay, on to revenue.
You also have in your packet your revenue report. This was run through December 10th. And for general fund, we're in pretty good shape right now. As I mentioned last month, people won't be able to file their state aid claims for any state aid reimbursement until after the quarter ends, which is December 31st. So we'll get all that from the departments early in the year. But right now, we are at about 70% of our budget. Last year at this time, we had received a little bit more revenue than we have this year, but we're on track to be okay at the year end for our revenues. Obviously, our sales tax is helping with that number, but there are other revenues that are a little bit behind, but again, that's because of claiming and that we haven't gotten all the claims updated, or won't and for our expenses till they end in December 31st. As far as our expenses, which you also have your expense report, we're at 71% of our budget. So we are neck and neck with what we are receiving in revenue and what we're spending. So we also at last year at this time spent a little more money at this time of year, and this year we're about down $1.7 million in expenses that were under what we spent last year at this time. So does anyone have any questions on any of those reports? Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Any old business? New business? Good of the order? Because it's money related, I'll note that we got good news from the state on some funding for a number of municipalities yesterday, but it's my understanding that's going to come through P&D, so I'm looking forward to hearing about that. If there's nothing else, motion to adjourn, please. Made by Mr. Curran, seconded by Ms. Burdick. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.